What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Your boy IronAngel here. The homie, well, I don't know him, but I'm a fan of his. We never met. That's why I don't know. I never met him, but I am a fan of his channel and what he does on here. But Maximilian dude is having a conversation about old games versus new games. Now, if he's going where I think he's going with this will be a very interesting conversation because, especially for someone who loves fighting games. Well, it's not even just fighting games; it's games in general. It happens every year, every new title of a franchise that's been around for a while, someone always comparing what was and talking down on what's new because of what was. And not say those people are wrong. It depends on who's talking and how they're putting it together. Me personally, I do love some older games better than the new ones. For instance, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is better than 3 and Infinite in my opinion. Mortal Kombat X is better than Mortal Kombat 1. The older Maddens, older 2Ks is better than the new ones. Am I at the point where I just sit there and trash it? No. There are some things I don't like with the new stuff, but there's just a way to go about it. I know there's a way to go about it. There's always been conversation with tons of gamers that always have the debate of what was and what is. And some are right and some are wrong. I'm interested in seeing if this what Matt's going to talk about, where it's always the debate with it and how to approach it.
Top Tekken 7 players, top Street Fighter players are complaining about Street Fighter 6 as well as Tekken 8. So apparently, I leave for a month or so.
Wait.
A month and
Tekken 8? Really? Y'all, what's wrong with Tekken 8? Or has some of them the honeymoon phase ended and now the game is trash? Because when the game first came out, and for a minute, it was getting high praise. So people are complaining about Tekken 8 already. I guess it's that honeymoon phase. I mean, I guess every game franchise that has a huge fan base says the same thing. They love it. It's amazing when it first comes out. Then after a few months, it's trash. I was just shocked because, I didn't expect Tekken to get that. And in my opinion, playing the games now, like I'm still playing the games, Tekken 8 and Tekken 7, I'm enjoying. Is there some mishaps? I mean, like some mistakes here and there? Sure, but it's not messing up. I don't know. Let me just hear what he has to say.
No, the honeymoon phase for Tekken 8 is over. This game sucks. Just to summarize, I would like to bring together what this topic of conversation boils down to. The topic of conversation effectively boils down to this absolutely lovely image that I found on Twitter earlier. Old game versus new game 2. New age of discourse. Masterful image. This was made by, I think it was Toast Rider. It's kind of what it's boiling down to. I think where we are at currently needs a little bit of perspective just based on where we're at in the fighting game community, much less fighting games as a genre, because we effectively just got, for the first time in the past 5 to 7 or 8 years, got a drop of the big three. Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter. These games have all been given new versions. They're all less than a year old. In most situations, in every situation, they're all less than a year old. The only thing that hasn't been updated is pretty much Smash. The largest focus community is around people that are big talking heads and have a lot of opinions in the FGC, are mostly focused around those games, right? The biggest communities in the fighting game genre are absolutely focused around Street Fighter and Tekken. They have been the most successful ones over the past, since Street Fighter 4 Rebirth era and, overall the 3D-ness of Tekken dominating in Tekken 7. These games are big. So a lot of people have a lot of stuff to say about it because Street Fighter 6 and Tekken effectively had similar solutions, or I'd say evolutions of previous games' gameplay going into the next game. What's funny is that it's not even that different for SNK moving forward with City of the Wolves as well. It's really not that different, all things considered. So where is the discourse coming from? It's effectively coming from the fact that these games are much more offensive focused, but that's not only it. There's a lot more conversations that are happening right now, and there's like a ton of examples of this, and I don't want to bring up individual examples because it feels like I'm calling out. I'm going to bring this back to something that's a little bit more bigger picture than it is just, oh, the old games were better, this game sucks, or new players could be good at this, and there's no way they would have been good back in the day, like that kind of stuff, right? So the new games are very offensive. Straight up. Tekken 8 as well as Street Fighter 6, these games are effectively more offensive than they kind of ever have been in most situations, and that's mechanically speaking. So that is not I'd say, uncommon trend Usually in the fighting game verse, like in the sphere of fighting game development, especially fighting games that are made overseas, a lot of them come from Japan, most of these games kind of follow similar trends at similar times. It's very odd. Almost conveniently around the same time, do these games get like these similar elements all over the place? You have to understand where the logic is coming from. Why is this happening? Why are games all of a sudden doing this? And it isn't the fact that the previous games were intentionally like very defensive. Naturally, a lot of focused fighting game player strategies, I can just say this as somebody that took this shit very seriously. The best strategy is to let your opponent effectively hang themselves, is to control the situation defensively. If somebody can't break your defense, then they feel lost, right?
Yeah.
So a general strategy. I'm very much generalizing this. I'm bringing this to like the McDonald's French fry level of descriptor here. In the past, yes, a lot of fighting games, defense is really good. If you have good defense, the offensive tools the games will give you naturally usually cannot break it if you're just really good at defense. Now, it seems like devs are almost like aware of that, where many fighting games in the past have boiled down to effectively very defensive strategies. It practically seemed like Harada and the crew at Tekken was almost perturbed by it. That's not their intention. Like sometimes, and this happens, well, effectively a lot. Fighting game developers will make a game. It will turn into something that they were not ready for. You get into the hands of 10,000 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people, 1 million people, and all of a sudden people are just doing things that you were not ready for, and now it isn't as much about how the game is, and it's more about what your response is. And that's where I gotta bring this conversation back a little bit. This is more broad scope. I don't disagree with what a lot of people are saying. Yes, a lot of new fighting games are very offensive. They definitely are. At early glance, they're super fun. Don't get me wrong. The honeymoon phase for these games comes across as something ridiculously enjoyable and fun. But in some ways, there is a little bit of homogenization, similar to what happened kind of with Dragon Ball FighterZ at the start. Because of overarching core gameplay mechanics, it doesn't allow individual characters and their strategies to shine. And yeah, you could definitely get that impression from what's going on. I don't disagree that that's happening right now. I think the games are naturally really fun, and they are effectively rewarding like fast-paced, more offensive decision-making. For sure.
I'm not going to front. As a person who likes playing fighting games, I prefer the rush down, more offensive way of playing. Of course, defense matters. I am not saying that it doesn't, but I love that focus. I love that, like he said, where they focus. I love it. Now, am I a pro player? No. Maybe, is this what pro players are complaining about? I have no idea. And so I'm not going to go back and forth with people. I'm just sharing what my kind of play style is. I love the offensive, get in your face, try to get you in a corner kind of play style. I could do the patient game, don't get me wrong. I could do the patient game and wait for my opponent to make the mistake as I'm playing great defense and frustrate them. I could do that. I've done it before. But the way these new games have been going, technically, Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat as well. Not even that, but Grand Blue, I love it. It makes the games quicker. You got to think quickly. If you mess up on the button tap, it is what it is, you know. You just got to get punished for it if the opponent's good enough to punish you. I like that. It keeps it going. So it makes the game faster. And I mean, it's a personal thing for me, but I like that.
And it
Let me know in the comments if that's you.
Competitively, at least from what I'm watching, it's going pretty good. A lot of people are complaining, and yes,
wait, what's going pretty good?
I'm having a good time, and it seems like competitively, at least from what I'm watching, it's going pretty good. A lot of people are complaining, and yes, the games are coming down to boilerplate 50-50 situations a lot now. You just got to guess all the time. But still, there is a pretty decent overall competitive element. Some of the big Street Fighter 6 events are going ridiculously good, and in all honesty, Street Fighter 6 is doing better than it ever has in places like Japan. Tekken 8, is another game that's more offensive than it's ever has been. It feels better to
I personally like
offense almost than ever before. We don't have a verdict on Tekken yet. We really don't. There has not been a ton of big ass Tekken 8 tournaments, but this leads to a very volatile game. And I could say the same thing that I felt about Street Fighter 6 to Tekken 8, even from the early impressions. Granted, this
random question. Well, not random because it's about this. Now that Street Fighter had $1 million tournament not too long ago, do you think Tekken will do that? I believe these fighting games should. Mortal Kombat should be up there. These games are making a lot of money, and to have Sonic Fox, Rewind, all these other ones, Ninja Killer out there compete for the big bucks. I think should be. But do you think Tekken will? It has to, right? It's up there in popularity. Like I said, the big three. I hope so. I hope Bandai, put the money down, the right way. Because I personally am not a fan. Maybe I missed the tournament late, but one of the tournaments I saw recently, the payouts were terrible for Mortal Kombat. And hopefully Mortal Kombat does better. Unless I missed one. But they need to be up there. Capcom set the bar for that $1 million prize. I think that's how it should be. And I can't remember what the second or third place was. But just hearing that, like, if you're a pro player, that's something that you're willing to invest in. Because you got to think of all the investments of travel and all that stuff. Can't remember who it was, but he was showing his investments of going to a Mortal Kombat tournament. I think he placed fourth. Let me know in the comments who this is I'm talking about, if you know. But he made fourth place, and I can't remember what his winnings were, but it was less than the money he paid to get to the event. And I know when you do that, when you go to tournaments, unless you're first place. Well, no, not unless you're first place, because there's brackets. First place gets this, second. He got something in fourth place, but his investment was more than the prize money. It's because the prize money was very low. And I would love to, I'll research it later, but I'm interested in seeing what was the prize points for top 5 in Street Fighter. One was $1 million, so I'm very curious. But yeah, let me know, is Tekken going to do that?
This is me admitting that I'm a goddamn noob. I've only put like 300 hours or so into Street Fighter 6. Absolute newbie hours, right? And I've only put maybe less than 100 hours into Tekken 8. Rookie hours. How dare you? But I get the vibe of these games. I get the vibe. They are going for much more volatile, uncontrollable experiences. And yes, I think anyone from a professional level to even a newbie level that you're getting into this stuff can kind of identify that shit, bro. Yeah, these games are trying to be much more volatile than they have been before. That's where we're at with some fighting games at the moment. And some people hate it, and you're allowed to. And some people kind of like it. Right. I'm sort of in that boat as well. But I can see how, yeah, if this stays the same, it probably won't be great for the long haul. So my question to you is, why do you expect it to stay the same? Seriously, think about where we're at right now. And I have to reiterate this over and over again. And it feels like we have to remind people of this. You are playing vanilla Tekken 8. You are practically playing vanilla Street Fighter 6. There has been very little changes to either of these games, to the point where the developers clearly wanted to do something different from previous titles. It's just convenient that a lot of them are doing similar shit. Bum rush your ass forward, neutral skips, relentless aggression, all these kind of things. But the reality of the situation is that right now, fighting games are kind of like more successful than they have been ever. But it's clear that these systems, while they are really fun, might not be where we should be judging them at the moment. I don't think they're devoid of criticism. Absolutely not. I think there is definitely stuff to criticize about, Drive Rush being as good as it is, of the crazy ass heat bullshit being incredible on some characters and not others. I definitely think there's room for criticism here, but I just like to put things into perspective. Most of us don't remember launch Tekken 7. Most of us don't even remember kind of what Tekken 6 was like, much less do I even have much of an impression of launch Tekken 6, because the game sucked so much ass that I was like, no, I don't want to play this. It's so bad to play online. This is terrible. A lot of the previous games that have existed have had huge problems. Let's just take Street Fighter, for example. How great was Street Fighter V at launch? It almost sank the entire goddamn franchise. DLC costumes saved that game.
I didn't know it was that bad. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad.
It was balls, dude. Not only did you have a game that, once again, did feel super homogenized, because every character had very similar, like, medium combos for almost everything, there was also extremely mitigated move lists in that game. They siphoned off characters' move lists to V-triggers, which were also limited use, as well as V-skills, which also only had certain types of usage. So Street Fighter V Vanilla was aggressively unfun, in my opinion. By the time that game eventually came out, aggressively unfun. Let's talk about Street Fighter 4. Yes, while Street Fighter 4 definitely had a wonderful resurgence of the fighting game community, much less kind of like the dawn of what we consider the FGC. It was a dawn of 2.5D fighting games. It was a resurgence of fighting games in general. There was a lot of great shit that happened there. But let's be completely honest with each other. There was a lot of hype around it. But let's talk about vanilla Street Fighter 4 and how fucked up it is. And do I even need to get into it? It's brutal, man. It was not good. It had a lot of excitement, and there was a lot of people definitely getting into it, but it was the first sort of perspective we had of fighting games. Vanilla SF4 was rough. And how do I know this? it was another part of my life where I was really committing to being super good at fighting games and going to tournaments and competing. And it was rough, man. That game had some severe issues that a lot of people were being very critical on. I was super active on SRK, which is kind of where, before the FGC had content and social media, SRK is sort of where you went, that and IRC. The amount of like just absolute discourse from OG Street Fighter heads to the goddamn new baby game Street Fighter 4 was ridiculous. For anybody that doesn't know, and that's a great question, what does vanilla mean? Vanilla means first version, absolute basic. You think of Street Fighter 4, you think of like Ultra Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4. You think of Street Fighter 5, you think of like Gil, and you think of Akira and Dan, and all these versions later on. You think of like V-shitting backwards. No. We're talking the games when they came out, 1.0. Tekken 7, when it came out, wasn't even 1.0. It was like version 2.5 by the time Tekken 7 came out. So that's almost like unfair. That game, when it came out, was so bad that I could not hear anything but like top Korean arcades and folks that were playing that game, even though we couldn't play it, do nothing but complain. It was brutal. I'm just trying to put some perspective in the situation. Let's go back even further. Street Fighter 3. And you might immediately think of something like Third Strike. Dude, no. Street Fighter 3 didn't start at Third Strike. It started at New Generation. Also, almost destroyed the franchise. In fact, it sank Street Fighter as a franchise until Street Fighter 4. I'm just gonna point out that is where we are currently at with some of these games. And in reality, in functionality, and in my perspective, what they have set up with Tekken 8, much less Street Fighter 6, is games that are trying to engage the player a bit more, to not reward passive behavior. And that's naturally, as somebody that comes from previous games, is not gonna gel with immediately. It's not. I'm not saying their criticisms aren't warranted. I'm really not. I think you're right. You're definitely fucking right. But at the same point, they're trying to go for something different. Some games took a bit too long, and I have to argue with that. I think Street Fighter 6 might have gotten a bit too long because we're getting nearly a year, and we might be a year into the game until we see an actual overhaul, a legit
Yeah, that's the
overhaul.
one thing that I did find that was weird. Somebody was talking about that before. They was like, "Can you imagine? Did you even think about it? Street Fighter 6 has not really had any serious updates since release." And I don't even think, I was like, wow, that is true. Wow, I didn't even think about it like that. But yeah, he's right. It has been. And let me know in the comments, do you think it would be too late? I don't. I think they should have moved up the process of overhauling something, like changing up some things. Especially I'm glad he said the drive rush, the impact. At least the drive impact. For me, I think that's a little too much. That gets too much power in my opinion. It saves too many people out of situations that they shouldn't be saved from. And so that's something I do hope they fix. But yeah, I didn't even think about it until someone brought it up to me. They was like, yeah, Street Fighter, they've been very quiet over there with actual updates. Like the only big update we've got is either a new character or some skin that you can't even use in the players that you play with online. You got to use it for, what's it called, World Tour or stuff like that, which I could care less for. No offense. I like World Tour, but I'm not going to pay $10, $15 for a skin for that mode. I'll do it for actual ranked or casual matches online, but that's about it. But I didn't even think about that until he brought it to my attention.
Some things, right? Some character things, and there's minor patches here and there. But it was obvious that this shit is going to get way better. Like, we're at the first version right now, dude. In my opinion, I think what they have set up for vanilla version fighting games, for the amount of like discourse for there to exist right now, doesn't make sense to me. Because in my eyes, from somebody that has been covering this shit and had to absorb the most hardcore element of it to the most casual element, fighting games are more accepted and wildly played than ever before right now. So
yes,
are they incredible?
And that's one thing I talked about this before, and actually it was reacted to one of his videos a while ago, where we gotta, for the ones who take fighting games, very seriously, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just pointing those people out. They have to understand that the casual fan base is what makes these companies a lot of money. And I'm not going to front. I don't have any friends that play fighting games because of what was. I try to talk them into it now because it's easier in some aspects, but I don't know if that's working right now. But I talk to him about stuff now because of how easier it is offensively, and it's faster, and not it's strategic, and obviously there's a way you got to play to get better, but it's not as hardcore as it used to be. And yeah, I mean, I think they've been scarred from the past fighting games that they don't care anymore. But point is that we have to understand that this company is trying to find ways to please both parties. The parties of, this is too hard. I do not have time for all this technical stuff. I got to go like this at this time with this frame and this and that. And if I don't, I lose every time. That's why I know some people that just quit Tekken 8 because the game is hard. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It is hard. Maybe the few ranks you can get up there, but I can't remember what rank it is. Once you get to a certain rank, it's hard. It's easier now than it has been, but it's still one of the hardest fighting games, in my opinion. We'll see what Project X come out. We'll see what happens with that. Inbirth is hard as well. But the companies are looking to try to please both parties the best they can, where they don't lose their identity, but also they're trying to attract with some newness to it. New age, we got to get some updates. How can we bring more players in? Because, I mean, I didn't even know until Max said it, how many times that Street Fighter was on the edge of losing, like messing up their franchise. As in, I guess he said, if I remember correctly, he said Street Fighter 3 almost destroyed their franchise. Something like that. You know what I'm trying to say. And when you're in that kind of stage, you're like, okay. In Street Fighter 5, I remember it was a bad opening for Street Fighter 5. I know it got better in time, but in the beginning it was bad. But these companies are trying to figure it out to please both parties. I always keep that in mind. I'm no pro player. I'm not very casual either. Like I play the middle. I like to learn new things and get better with some of the small stuff that actually makes a big difference. I love doing that stuff, and if I have to lose so much to do it, I'll go through it. But a lot of people ain't gonna be like that. They're like, look, can I get a win? I played 10 matches. I lost all 10 of them because I don't know a certain frame or this or that. So now I will say those kind of players don't go to ranked expecting to rank up. I told a friend that he didn't like that, but it's the truth. They don't go to rank and complain about the game. Because when you go to rank, there's people in there that's trying to rank up, so they're going at your neck. They go at your neck too on casual matches, but you get a better chance at facing players like you than you do on rank. But anyway, yeah, so you got to consider that. I consider when I play games, I consider not just me or not just the pro player, but also the casual player who comes home after an 8-10 hour shift, just want to play a game, and they like fighting games. They want to learn a little bit, get a couple wins on their belt and stuff like that. It goes both ways. And I think a lot of players need to think on that, on both sides. The casual players got to understand, too, that the game is not just for you either. There's people, it's not sweating. They're not sweating because they actually want to win and do things better than you are. I hate that word. Like, I used to use it too much back in the day. It was more on basketball. But I call myself out on that, too. It's true. It's not sweating to want to be better. Both sides got to bend a little bit. It's like, okay, everything can go your way and everything can go your way. Let's get a middle ground here. Let's go back to the video.
Balanced, and is everything perfect? No. People are going to break them. And that is almost the guarantee between developer and player that has to be accepted on a development level. You're going to put this into the hands of people. Their goal is to shit on it. Not physically, not literally, but their goal is to take what you made and undo it in their favor so that they win. That's the whole point of being a fighting game player. The whole point when we were figuring this stuff out back in the 90s to be like the best at shit, much less the 2000s when I was taking it really seriously and I was in my early 20s, the whole point of it was to find the new most broken shit that would put my opponent in a situation where they have so little control of what's happening. I have the most control and it is the most unfair for my opponent. That is the goal of fighting games. That is the goal of a person that eventually plays fighting games, to become the most in control of every single situation so that you can hopefully guarantee a victory. Older fighting games made that much easier. And this is where we also get into the second part of the discourse, which is, why is there so many newer players that are able to be good in comparison to effectively new players would not have been good at the old games because old games were harder. There was actual execution. Okay? An interesting assessment. And, I see from either end where it's like, well, that isn't exactly fair, like yada, yada, yada. I got to bring it back to what I was just talking about. That's the big debate that's also happening with this
To be
entire
continued?
discourse.
Oh, okay. I guess that's that what I was talking about earlier when I said he has that video of old games versus new games. I'll react to that in a different video. But yeah, it wasn't he didn't go where I thought fully he was gonna go, but the point is things are changing and there's some good for the casuals, there's some good for the middle, there's some good for the pros. I understand these fighting game developers frustration sometimes because they're trying to please everybody. If you please the pro players who want this, or not even pro players like tournament, I'm talking about just pro, like you're really good at the game, like you could pick up the controller and kick some butt, have 20 win streaks, whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be just tournament when I say pro player, but the master ranks at Street Fighter and stuff like that. But they're trying to please both parties. And when they lean more on one side, then the other side gets gets upset. When they go one way, then the other side gets upset. And I understand what someone told me, not me, but it was on Twitter. They said a casual player said, "I hate it when a pro player tells us casuals what we should want, and that it should be more understand. We should understand them. They don't take the time to understand me." I see what his point is because if you're a pro player, it's not that you can't understand the casual player base, but it's kind of like what Max said. When you're a pro player, you're trying to learn different ins and outs to break the game for your favor, you know. And that advice you gave, it might work, it might not, but you gotta understand that when casual players look at you, they're like, of course you're gonna say that because it'll work in your favor, you know. But on this other end too, casual players need to learn that it's not just about them too. It goes both ways. It's kind of hard to choose what's the wrong side. I only think it's wrong when you take it to the extreme, you know. And I don't need to go in details of that. We've seen it on Twitter, on YouTube. Those who take it too far, going at the devs, going at people who just want the game to work for their player base or whatever. So, you know, I ain't gonna go into all that. That's a long conversation. But I see where Max is coming from. Me personally, I see both points. Some things that I believe are good for the fighting games, like how he said is more offensive based and it's faster. I personally think that's a good thing. And you could say, well, it's because that's the play style you like. Yeah, you're right. You know, I'll take that. But I do also see how some things are a cop out. You know, like drive impact or other things, or how the heat system, like how you said, works very well for some characters and not for others, and all that other stuff. There are certain aspects to the game where, like Mortal Kombat, if you have, who was it, Raiden and Stryker? I think that was the combo that you don't even have to be that good at the game. You know, I understand both sides. So let me know in the comment section what you think about this conversation. I'm definitely going to react to that part 2. And I believe, let me see here. First, let me give him a like on the video. Go subscribe to Max if you haven't yet. Yeah, one thing, and I had to learn that back in the day, the games is not meant to just please us old players who've been, well, I've been with this franchise for years. So they're trying to get more, you know, companies are about getting the bottom dollar, the money. So they got to get more money. You and the small play, the hardcore player base is not going to pay their bills. Is not going to give them the money they're looking for. Heck, even the money they spent to make the game. They got to figure out how can we bring more. And I've understood that, not just in fight, but just in games in general. So do I like everything? Heck no. I'm not even gonna be that person. Be like, it's all good. No. There are some things I'm just like, what? Like when I played 2K back in the day, I don't know if y'all played 2K, but there's a thing where you will shoot these crazy threes and it'll just go in, and your defense does not matter and all this other stuff. It's like, what in the world is going on? Then a friend told me they're trying to bring some more players in, and as truthful as that is, it was frustrating, and I just stopped playing 2K. And you have the right to not play what you don't want to play, because if it's, you know, if you're a pro player, and it's like, it's more for the casual basis. This is no. People who are not that good look good because they're using Raiden and Stryker. You have the right to do what you want. But I understand the gaming companies. I understand, you know. If you make it too hard for the ones who want to spend hours to know every little frame, and if you make it just for them, you're not going to get a profit. I mean, you're not. That is what it is. Street Fighter is not going to have $1 million tournaments, or whoever made that $1 million tournament and all that stuff. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You have to figure out how to bring more in. And if my memory serves me correctly, Street Fighter and Tekken had the most copies bought on release day or something like that in the first month than they ever had. They wouldn't do that if it was just meant for the pro players. So, and you could say, oh, well, these casuals need to sit and learn and get with the program. Some just want to come home from work and play online. It is what it is. We can't tell anybody how they live their life. But anyway, let me know what you think. And I love Max when he talks about stuff like this. But I like when he does this. And he's really good with everything he does here. His other games, all that other stuff. Anyway, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'll check you later.